Hello, everyone. Now we are going to do the next topic, which is hash functions. Okay, now we just introduced three ways in which authentication can be done. And in the last class, we had taken authentication through encryption functions and authentication through MAC. Now, the next method is hash functions. Okay, now what is a hash function? It's very similar to MAC with certain compulsorily hash functions should have certain properties. We're going to look at those things. Okay, so what is a hash function? Just like in MAC, it condenses the message to a fixed size. So the size of the message is not important. Whatever the size of the message, that message is going to be condensed into a fixed size hash function. Okay, and usually the hash function is a public function. Anybody can, use the hash function to get a hash. Okay, we do not ensure that the message is not being tampered. Instead, we can check whether the message has been tampered. So detection is what is meant with the hash function. Okay, so when we send a message, either encrypted or without encryption with a hash, at the receiver side, that message's hash is once again generated just like in MAC, and they are compared. If the hash value has changed, it means the message has been changed. Okay, now the hash function to be cryptographically secure, there are two properties which it should satisfy. There are other properties also which are, desirable for hash functions that we will look at later. But for cryptographically secure hash function, these two properties are important. It should have a one-way property and it should be collision-free. Okay, now what is one-way property? One-way property means from a message, I should be able to calculate the hash, but from the hash, I should not be able to get the message. So it should not be able to compute the message backward from the hash. So it is computationally infeasible to find data mapping to the specific hash. Okay, that is the one-way property. And collision-free property is that it should not be possible, it should be computationally infeasible to find two different messages with the same hash. Okay, these are the properties that are required if you want the hash function to be cryptographically secure. Okay, but different hash functions has got different levels to which these properties are satisfied, and that is why some hash functions are not secure. Okay, and that we're going to look at a little later. Now, this is in general the diagrammatic representation of a cryptographic hash function. The message or data block can be of any size L, and the length L is also appended to the message. And this block, the message plus the length L, it is given to the hash function, and the hash function will give you a hash value of fixed size L. Okay. Now, what are the hash function uses? It can be used in three different ways. We already saw that it can be used to check the integrity of the message. It can be used instead of or like a MAC, that is message authentication code, and we can use hash functions for digital signature, so that which allows non-repudiation. Okay, now we're going to look at each. Message integrity check or MIC, the hash value is simply sent along with the message. The MIC, that is the integrity check, is the hash value is always encrypted, but the message may or may not be encrypted. MAC, we have already seen, keyed hash of the message is taken, and here also MAC is MAC and the message are optionally encrypted, may or may not be encrypted. Okay, digital signature, encryption is done with a private signing key. Okay, so there will be a signing key, and the encryption is of the hash will be done with a private signing key, which is here. You will see that it is, given as S, and the verification of that particular hash will be done using the public key, just like in, private key, public key crypto systems. Okay. Next, hash functions and message authentication. Okay. So here we are looking how a symmetric key unkeyed hash. Okay. That is a normal symmetric key hash function can be used for message authentication, where the A shows messages not encrypted and messages in encrypted, and B shows where message is not encrypted. So let's look at A. If there is a message, the hash of the message is calculated, and then the message and the hash is appended. This message hash appended block is then encrypted using since it is symmetric key, the secret key, and it is sent to the destination. At the destination, the block that was received is decrypted with the secret key, and then we once again use the message portion of the decrypted message to find the hash and check whether both hashes are the same. If they are same, there is no tamper in the message and the message is authenticated. If the hash values differ, that means some tampering has occurred. Okay. Now this is with encryption. So without encryption, this portion, E and D, the encryption and decryption portion is not there. That's all. Okay. So that is the B diagram. Okay. Now here, instead of encrypting since there is no encryption of the whole document, the hash is encrypted and sent. So here the message is given as input to the hash to find the hash, and after finding the hash, the secret key is used to encrypt the hash, but message is sent without encryption. And then at the receiving end, the hash is once again decrypted, and then the hash is recalculated and checked whether they are the same. Okay. Now, symmetric keyed hash. Earlier we saw unkeyed hash. So now we're going to look at symmetric keyed hash. Here A is where the message is not encrypted, and B is where the message is encrypted. So we're going to look what happens with the keyed hash. You have a separate key for encryption and a separate key for hashing. Okay, so the message is not the only thing that is given for the hashing. A key is also given for the hashing, and then the message and the keyed hash is appended and sent to the destination. At the destination, once again, the message along with the hash key is used to calculate the hash, and it is compared to the hash that was received by the receiver. If they are the same, then the message is authenticated. Okay. Now here you can see very clearly that except for when the whole message is encrypted, after this, there is an encryption in this particular position, which is over here. And for that, a different key is used. Okay. S is the key for hashing. K is the key for encryption and decryption. Okay. And then it is sent, the whole message is encrypted and sent. Before this section, comparison of the hashes can be done, the whole message is decrypted, and then the hashes are compared to check whether the message is authentic. Okay. Now, how hash functions are used for digital signatures? Okay, so this is public key encryption. So here, one method is A, where the whole message is not encrypted, and here the whole message is encrypted. Okay, so we have a message and the hash is found out. The hash is encrypted using the private key. Since the message itself is not encrypted, the hash alone is encrypted using the private key, and then the message and the encrypted hash is appended and sent to the user. The user takes the received hash portion, encrypted hash portion, and decrypts it using the public key of the sender, and then checks whether the generated hash and the received hash are the same. Okay. Now, similar to the to previously, when the whole message is encrypted, after this first portion, after we get the message appended with the encrypted hash, the whole message and encrypted hash is once again encrypted using the encryption key. Okay, and then it is sent. So before the hash can be checked, it has to decrypt the message, and then the public key has to be used to decrypt the encrypted hash, and comparison has to be done. Okay. Other hash functions that are often used are pseudo-random functions, or PRF. They generate session keys or nonces. So temporary keys can be generated using pseudo-random functions. They produce key from the password, and they can also derive keys from the master key cooperatively. Master key, you remember we said earlier that the key distribution center will share a master key with the users. Okay, so the master key is, if it is known, only then access to the public key will be given, if you remember the previous lessons. So here, the session keys can also be derived using the master keys cooperatively with the key distribution set or trusted third party. Okay, another function that is commonly used are pseudo-random number generators. Okay, so the Vernon cipher or the one-time password can be used, or SR key. SR key is also a one-time password system which is used with Unix-like operating systems. Okay, so it provides a proof of what we have through the messages. Okay, so authentication can be done. Okay, more hash function uses to create a one-way password file. Okay, so one use of hash function is to securely store passwords. Okay, so instead of storing the actual password, hash of the password is stored. For example, this is used in Unix and in Windows NT, etc. Another use for password is salted passwords. Okay, so it prevents pre-computation attacks. And what is salted passwords? It adds a random character before or after a password prior to the hashing, so that it gives better security for the password. Another method for using hash functions is rainbow tables. Here also, it is a listing of the password hash values for each plain text character used during the authentication. Okay, so for every plain text character, there is a hashed password listing in this rainbow table. So these are other uses of one-way password files or hash functions, one-word pass for having secure passwords. Okay, for intrusion, hashes are also used for intrusion detection and virus detection. So the hashes, we keep and check the hash of the file on the system. So if at any point the hash of the file has changed, then the file has also been altered. So we can check intrusions and viruses. And an example is Tripwire uses this particular method to check for intrusion detection and virus detection. Okay. Now, one method for one-time passwords is Lamport one-time password. Okay, password safety. This particular method is used for safety in distributed systems. And what it does is, even if the server is compromised, the password does not become compromised. And even if there is an interception of an authentic exchange. Okay, so when authentication is being done, if there is any attacker intercepts those messages, even then password cannot be compromised. Okay, so what exactly is Lamport password? We're going to look at in the few slides, following few slides. So now, first, if Alice wants to hash her password and store it, then Alice picks a password PA and hashes the password n times, h raised to n, p of a. And this h is publicly known. Okay, and then the server stores Alice, n, and h raised to n, p of a. Now the thing is, even if the attacker gets h raised to n p of a, since it's a hash function and it is one way, he cannot get the actual password. Okay. So what is the protocol? Alice sends, I'm Alice, and the server sends back n minus 1. Alice sends x, which is h raised to, that is n minus 1 times she hashes the password and she sends it to the server. So x is sent, h raised to n minus 1 PA. What the server does to verify is that the server hashes this x value one more time. So in effect, h of x is equal to h raised to n p of a. Okay, and if this h raised to n, you can hash h raised to n p of a, then server updates Alice n minus 1 x. Okay, and attackers here again, the x value is h raised to n pa. Okay, so from again, because it is one word, one way, it cannot, back calculations cannot be done. So the actual calculation hn minus 1 pa is not what is stored over here. Instead, h of n pa is stored in Alice's server. Okay, so whatever, even now, back calculations are not possible. So still PA's or password is safe and you can authenticate that this particular password is Alice's. Okay. Now we're going to look at two simple insecure hash functions. Okay, they are insecure hash functions, but it used to be used earlier. So the two simple insecure hash functions, one bit by bit exclusive OR of every block, and the other is one bit circular shift on hash value. So here, how many blocks you have, each block is XORed with the next block. Okay, and this allows for a redundancy check and allows for data integrity check. Okay. Next is a one bit circular shift on hash. So here what happens is, for each successive n block, just like this, for each successive n block, the previous hash value is shifted left by 1 bit, and then the XOR is done with the next block. Okay, again, this is good for integrity, but does not provide, you cannot provide security. Okay, so message tampering can be checked, but authentication of the sender or the message cannot be done. Okay, now these are the functional requirements of a hash function. Okay, one, variable input size should be, so any block size h should be able to be calculated, and the output should be of fixed length. Efficiency, calculation of hash must be relatively easy for any given x. Okay, both in hardware and in software implementations. Then we have the three properties: pre-image resistant, that is one-way property, that is you should be able to calculate the hash, but from the hash you should not be able to calculate the message. Okay, second pre-image resistant. That means for any given block of message X, you should not be able to find another message Y which has got the same hash as that of X. Okay, so for any given message, you should not be able to find another message which has got the same hash as h of X. That is weak collision resistant or second pre-image resistant. Okay, then we have the collision resistance, strong collision resistance. It should be computationally infeasible to find two different messages, X and Y, with the same hash. Okay, that is strong collision resistance. Okay, then pseudo randomness, the output hash H must meet the standard test for pseudo randomness. So it should look like the hash value is random. Now we're going to look at attacks on hash functions. Okay, now two types of attacks are possible: brute force attack and cryptanalysis is possible. Okay, now a pre-image or second image attack is that finding a second image Y for a given message X. Okay, so that is one attack. We can try to find a message Y, which is different from the original message X, which has got the same value of XY. Then another attack is collision resistant. We can try to find two different messages which has got the same hash. Okay, for both these cases, 2 raised to m by 2 is the value that determines the strength of the hash code. And for against brute force attack, it seems that hash values of 128 bits and 160 bits are not very secure. Okay. Now, one specific attack is birthday attack. Okay. Now, here in the birthday attack, it was done when the hash values were 64 bits. Okay. Even though we might think that 64 bits is secure, by the birthday paradox, we can see that it is not secure. And what exactly is the birthday attack? It's simple, actually. The original message the user sends is a message X. So the user is prepared to sign a valid message X. What the opponent does is, opponent generates 2 raised to m by 2. That is the number of variations that are possible. And from 2 raised to m by 2, we should be able to find, for small bit hashes, a message which has got the same hash. So what the opponent does is, he takes the original message X and he finds 2 raised to m by 2 variations of X. Not exactly the same, but the meaning is somewhat the same. And he saves them. So he has got 2 raised to m by 2 variations of the original message X, which has the similar meaning, but they are not the same. Then he generates his fraudulent message Y, and he finds again 2 raised to m by 2 variations of this fraudulent message Y dash. Okay, so he has got 2 raised to m by 2 variations of the original message X and 2 raised to m by 2 variations of his fraudulent message Y. Okay, now what birthday attack says is that for these two, if we say, compare these two sets of messages, X dash and Y dash, there is a probability greater than half that there will be two X dash and Y dash which have got the same hash. Okay, so we have the user sign the valid message, then substitute the forgery with the valid signature. And the conclusion is that 64 bits is not enough. Okay, we need to, and we saw earlier, even 160 bits is many times not enough. So we need bigger values. Okay, so this is diagrammatically the birthday paradox. Find I and J such that H Y dash of J is equal to H X dash of Y. So we have the original message X and Y, which are not equal. Okay, but there are n variations of Y, that is 2 raised to m by 2 variations of Y and 2 raised to m by 2 variations of X dash. And we check in this table, is there any Y dash and X dash which has got the same hash? Okay, now if we do it in a table format, the time complexity is order of n square. But if we use lists, sorted lists, then the time can be decreased to order of n log n. Okay, so what are the chances that we get a match? We saw already earlier that the probability is greater than 0.5. And the description is given here for n distinct values. That is, we saw earlier, n is equal to 2 raised to m by 2. N distinct values, k randomly chosen, k is randomly chosen. Okay, so P of, that is these P of n comma I is the probability of I randomly selected values for from 1 to n have at least one match. The probability that there is at least one match for I randomly selected messages from this n. Okay, and if this I is equal to 2, that we are saying that there are at least 2 randomly selected values from 1 to n with at least one match, then the probability is 1 by n. Okay, so if this is I plus 1, that is this particular value is I plus 1, then the probability is probability of n comma I plus 1 minus P of n comma I into I divided by n. These are all probability theories. Okay, and if the seed is n raised to 1 by 2, okay, then we need at least the probability is half. If k is equal to n raised to 1 by 2, then the probability becomes greater than 0.5. Okay, so the solution is that the number of bits must be at least doubled. In this case, the number of bits must be at least doubled. Okay, hash function cryptanalysis. The cryptanalytic attack exploits the properties of the algorithm or the structure. Okay, so the hash function uses an iterative structure. So it processes messages in blocks and does it depending on how many blocks are there. Okay, so if there are L blocks, then L times the hash function is done. So this we can see over here. So this structure or the algorithm is what is attacked in the case of cryptanalysis. Okay, the IV initial value is first used for the hashing, and then the messages are divided into Y0, Y1, etc., YL minus 1, and the output of the first block is given as input to the next block. Okay, so for cryptanalysis, this structure or the algorithm is what is going to be attacked. Okay, now we are going to look at how block ciphers are used as hash functions. Okay, so we can use block ciphers as hash functions using the first hash H0 is equal to 0, and to satisfy the block requirement, 0 padding the final block. Okay, so the calculating H of I is simply done by encrypting the message block with the previous hash. Okay, so instead of using a key, the message block is used as the key, and the previous hash is what is being encrypted. Okay, and we begin with H0 is equal to 0 for the first block. Okay, and the final output of the final block is considered the hash value of that particular message. It is very similar to CBC, except instead of using a key, we are using the message block itself. Okay, the resulting hash, however, is too small, only 64 bits. So it is prone to birthday attack and meet in the middle attack. There are other variants also, and they are also, many of them are susceptible to attack. Okay, so how exactly the block cipher is used is shown over here in this algorithm. We can see over here that to begin with, the hash is taken as 0, and the first block of M1 is given as input to the encryption function instead of the key, and the output of that particular encryption is taken as the next hash value for the next block M2. And this is done for all L blocks, and the final value HL is considered as the hash for the whole function. Okay, and this is detailed over here in the left-hand side. Okay, with this, we have concluded today's class. Feel free to contact me for any doubts, and please don't forget to like and subscribe. Thank you.